in the background. All right,
Yeah.
everybody, we're starting our webinar, and we're just going to give everybody jump in and join us. So just a few minutes as people join us for this incredible webinar. I think it's going to be one of my favorites this week. So first of all, it's the Dental Assistant Recognition Week. So for all dental assistants joining us, congratulations. This is your week. We're celebrating you. The whole idea of this webinar was to celebrate our dental assistants. We really mean it. And that we try to find people that really represent the part of the industry that truly appreciates the dental assistants. I still remember going back to Dr. Stimler's office in New York, in Brooklyn. That was like 6 or 7 years ago, when I had a piece of paper and I followed your dental assistant. What's her name? Come on, Tiger, you remember? Brian, what was her name? She was awesome. Come on,
I'm trying
Tiger.
to think who you were following.
Chanel was at the front.
Still on.
Shalon was at the front. Okay, yeah. So, but the point that I'm trying to make is I followed your dental assist for a full day because I was so excited to count every single little thing that your assistant did. And like pull the tray out, put it on a desk, put an instrument, grab a composite, put it on a tray. And so I counted everything, and that was 3,000, by now I don't remember, like 3,279 individual tasks that a dental assistant does during the day. And you and I looked at each other and we're like, wow, we thought it would be like 500, 600 things, but that was like a lot. And so Brian played a pretty big role for me to understand the importance of dental assistants, how critical you guys are in the dental practice. We even joke, like, I hope office managers are not listening, but you and I even joke, like, you could run a practice with nobody. Like, you really don't need anybody. You just need a doctor and a dental assistant. So there was a lot on that.
Practices now that have no one up front. It's all computers.
That's unbelievable.
Kind of wild.
That's unbelievable. That's
How do
going
I
to be
see
separate.
people? I can't see anyone.
What's up, Sean?
I should have asked you that before we started.
Yeah. All right. So again, let's just give another 2 minutes for people to jump in, finish their procedures, and then join us for this very, very exciting webinar. So I won't give any previews until we start because there's just a lot to unpack. Brian, it's going to be a 45-minute webinar. You're leading it. I'm going to helping you. I'll be helping you. And then we'll leave a little bit at the end for like a 15 minutes thing. And then we're going to do a raffle, guys. So we're going to give away $300 gift cards for anybody who attends. So hopefully it's all dental assistants because we want to recognize dental assistants. So if you're a dental assistant, take part in the raffle. So we're just going to put that link pretty soon. And then we're going to get going in 2 minutes. So Michael, throw the raffle thing in the chat so that people start filling out the raffle. And yep, so guys, please go to that document and start filling out that information. Let me check. It should be pretty simple. It's just the name, email, practice name. Yep. That will allow us to pick the winners at the end of this webinar. So let's see, there's a way, can we pin it? I don't know. I'll just keep reminding everybody to fill out the raffle. All right, so we're about to get started. Just very quick, Dr. Brian Stillman is one of my favorite doctors. One of my favorite people to think about outside the box. And the topic today is literally thinking outside the box. Where do we start with that? So the whole conversation today is going to roll around the career ladder for dental assistants. There is a lot that Brian and I want to talk about. We certainly don't want to make it a controversial subject at all. And we just want to be provoking the thought. That's all we're going to try to do. We're not here to say this is how you should do it, this is this, and this is that. We just want to provoke the thought in the conversation within a dental office between a doctor and a dental assistant on how to get people moving up the ladder. So I'll just leave it at that. Brian, do you have any thoughts before we jump in? And then we're going to start going through the slides and then actually share with people what was your idea in the beginning. And I kind of help you formalize it into a form that we're going to share with people, like the actual tiers. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, let's jump in.
All right, let's jump in. Okay, so what I would like everybody to do is just go on chat and put a thumbs down and say, let's go, or LG or LFG if you want to put it in. Like that, we know that you guys are hearing us, you're paying attention, and more importantly, you can see the screen. So just want to make sure that you guys in the chat can put something that we can see that you're alive and you're listening and you can hear us. Thanks, Karina. I knew I can count on you. Thank you, Lauren. Let's go, Megan. Martha, let's go. All right. So people can hear us. This is great. So Brian, you and I are passionate about dental assistants. There's no secret about it. When the dental postal report came out a couple of weeks ago, I immediately sent you the link and I said, we got to do something about it, because you and I started our first conversation 2 years ago. Hi, Angie. And that was specifically to address this kind of issue. So I thought what you and I thought about 2 years ago is actually perfect to discuss around what this report showed us. And the number one thing, I mean, the two things that this report revealed is, again, this is not what we're trying to say. It's just from the report, right? That was alarming to you and I, that 27% of dental assistants, only 27% of dental assistants are satisfied with the pay, and only 47% considering leaving. So again, I hope it's none of you guys attending this webinar. I hope it's other people that got interviewed, but we wanted to address it because we feel that if that's an issue and it's very alarming stats in the industry, we got to come up with something we got to address. I don't know what happened with Brian, but I think he's coming back just in a second. And so Brian is back. Fantastic. So these are the two stats that were alarming to us that we wanted to address. All right. So the things that we see that were really interesting from the report, and I hope you guys can see it as well, what wears dental assistants down and what lights dental assistants up. And so there are so many things clinically, right? Dental assistants get light up from a clinical standpoint, like being part of the clinical team, right? They say the patients, working with the patients and knowing I put them at ease and make their appointments as pleasant as possible, right? So again, it's all clinical. I don't think the back office stuff like supplies light people up, dental assistants up, but that's like a separate conversation that we can talk about. Brian, do you have any thoughts on this slide before we jump into our exciting idea about the tiers?
Yeah, real quick, can we get who in here is an assistant and who's
that's right? Let's do
doctor,
a poll. I completely forgot.
I just want to know who we're talking to because I'm curious.
I'm sharing a poll, guys. Okay, so please give us your ideas or share with us. All right, we got doctor, dental assistants, office managers, dental assistants. Okay, we have one doctor, we have 3 dental assistants, we have 3 office manager owners, which is awesome. So there's a lot of conversation we can have around, I would say it's a 50-50 split.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a really fast background. I had my own office. So I was an associate. I had my own office. Started a group with a couple of friends, had a lot of offices. So I've looked at this from a number of different ways. So when I look at this data, Tiger and I will butt heads on this sometimes. At the end of the day, the goal is the same. I may just look at it from a different point of view. So when I'm looking at what wears the dental assistants down, one of the ones was, it's a physical job. Yeah, it is a physical job. There is no way of getting around that. It's physical as a doctor, it's physical as a hygienist, it's physical as a dental assistant, right? And so when I'm looking at it, and what we intend to do is to really make things really cool, to make hopefully compensation match that for people who really want to do this. Because when I look at it, what lights people up? Taking care of patients. Same for me. I had the last 2 days, I did a full mouth rehab. So you're sitting in the chair for 3, 4, 5 hours a day. That is incredibly physically taxing. But what do we do for our patient? So much better than any sore neck that I have. Disrespect, toxicity, all of that sort of stuff to me then goes towards what type of people am I working with, and what is their communication ability, what is their leadership ability. They may not be at a high level of communication or ability, leadership, but if they have that ability, that's something we can learn, practice, and then flex, right? And so I look at a lot of the negatives as we can get through that stuff with training. And then the stuff that lights up dental assistants, yeah, me too, right? That stuff, that's the best stuff there is. But the 2 points that you made earlier are the things that I think we can change. I'm going to say right now too, just get it out of the way, that what we are looking at, and I'll give you guys some examples because I've done this. This isn't just theory. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of work. And so when I look at 42%, we're not happy with compensation.
47.
47.
47. One second. Something along those lines, but I just want to make sure our data is right. 27% of DA satisfied with pay. 47 considered leaving.
Okay. And so what we're proposing is not an easy, like, click this button and I get paid more, right? And I think the biggest thing that we have to ask is, what makes me happy? What is going to make me happy at work? And I think if we know that, it makes navigating all of this stuff a lot easier, because if what makes you happy is really taking care of patients, working with a really cool team, learning a bunch of new skills, and being able to do a bunch of cool stuff, we can deal with physical stress. We can deal with days where communication goes sideways and we all have a bad day. We can deal with all of that stuff, but it takes a lot of work. And so just understand what we're saying is not simple. It takes a lot of work, and it's for the right people.
Yeah. With that being said, let's jump in.
Yeah.
Our proposed solution, and what are we and why are we doing this, right? So I think the number one, it should have been said and why, it's my mistake. But our main goal is, you and I are looking at it, we may be looking differently, but the goal is the same. We're trying to save the industry. Without DAs, we can't run the practice. And then, Brian, for as long as I know you, you've always said this, and I hope nobody takes offense, like office managers, everybody's super, super valued. We just want to point out that like literally what you said is the communication line, the most important communication line in the office is the doctor and the dental assistant. Like, if that is working, everything else is just like a domino effect. It's just going to work, because that relationship and communication line you said is the most important. Can you unpack that before we actually go in the tiers, and what you meant by the patient trust and efficiency, and that the RDAs are actually enjoying the work if that line of communication is working?
Yeah, I think it's a trickle down effect. And so what I'm saying is a very high level. If my assistant and myself are on the same page with everything, I can be incredibly efficient. My days are easier when I don't have to muscle my way through everything. It's the same from a dental assistant. If you have to muscle through everything because your doctor won't listen to you, your days are not easy. It could be a lot easier. But it trickles down. If myself and my assistant are communicating with patients the same way, it makes a lot more sense in the eyes of a patient. And then there's more trust, right? If we are really polished in our communication, that trickles on down the line. Really, if you're the type of doctor that is training your dental assistants in that manner, you're probably training the rest of your team as well, right? So that communication stuff should go through the whole office, but it's a trickle down effect. But I could have, as a dentist, I could have the best treatment coordinator closing all of these cases. I could managers putting together this incredible schedule and all of this stuff. And if I can't get on the same page with my assistant, the schedule doesn't matter all that much, because we're never going to be on time. We're not going to be efficient. And every day is stressful. That's just where I come from. My mentality.
So with that,
but I do think lower down on that. RDAs, the ones that I have worked with, and when I'm talking about job satisfaction, I don't think anyone gets into dental assisting thinking like, this is going to be really fun if I just sit there and suck spit all day, right? And I wouldn't want that from my assistant. I want someone who's truly part of the clinical team. They depend on me. I depend on them. I'm like the right hand, they're the left hand, right? And so it's got to become, we become a treatment team. It's not one individual. It's the team that's doing all of this stuff. And you get a lot more satisfaction out of that because you're truly helping that patient. Physically, you're in there doing stuff and helping with that patient. And so you're going to keep hearing me say that.
A lot, which is good. All right. So what is the idea behind this whole thing? So it's called a tiered system. I think the way it started is like just a bizarre question that I had for Brian back in the day. And I said, Brian, would you ever pay your assistant $45 an hour? And you guys remember COVID times, and it was pretty wild out there. And I think Brian, like most people say, no way in the world, but Brian was like, let me think about it. So we started thinking, and we both were trying to address it from a standpoint of not the entitlement, but the growth opportunity. Like with that much pay comes a lot more that the dental assistant brings to the table. And so we wanted to kind of break the noise a little bit, because there was way too much noise going on in the industry, especially at that time when, well, but this person wants this and this person threatens me to leave and this and that. And we started the discussion with, what if there was a structured way to have a conversation? So for example, for practices, to clearly define the system that enables growth for the assistant. Assistants want to grow. Nobody wants to be stuck as a sterilization tech or dental assistant and so far and so on. It actually encourages the discussion. So Brian and I both talked about it. In both of our businesses, people ask for a raise all the time. That's a normal part of the business. That means people want to grow. People want to make money. We want to have a conversation about it up front. So the worst thing is, from what I've seen, is some of our clients, they would have a dental assistant who is super valuable. And then a month down the road, I go to that office and they're like, she's gone. What happened? Oh, they offered her more money at the different office. And then you would ask the doctor and say, would you offer the same? It's like, absolutely. I just never got a chance to ask that or present that. So that's typically the worst thing that can happen. Like, you just don't have a chance. So like this system that we're proposing encourages that discussion up front so that everybody is aware and understand. It's a clear roadmap, and it basically, it's an intangible thing that it's just not covered anywhere. And I think that's the framework that gives to the offices to discuss with an office. But then, Brian, address the assistant side of things, because you're very passionate about it. That all of this stuff is when you wrote it down, like we just word for word put it in here. Add more things to the practices, but like, let's address the assistant side of things.
Yeah. So in 2016, I realized that I had no way. I was 2 years into owning my own office. I realized I had no rhyme or reason on like how or why you give someone a raise. And as I started doing consulting around that time, it wasn't there. No one had a real clear answer. And I had an early version of what you guys will see, but it was 6 different tiers, different levels of skill that I was able to say, for someone who can do that, I'll pay them this. For someone who can do that, I'll up it by $2. For someone who can do this, I'll up it by $3. And it was just skills. And that worked. And it was nice for me because I would talk about it during an interview. You know, I don't give a raise based off of, you've been here for a year. It's as we all grow in compensation as well. The other thought behind that is that it does take a skilled team to increase production in an office. And at the end of the day, an office is a business. And I think everyone does need to understand that in some regard. And so as the office continues to grow in production, it allows us to do different things. We can add new people on. So a lot of times, as an office is growing, assistants will get very stressed out during that growth in increments of time, because you're close enough to being able to hire somebody else to help you guys, but you're not there yet. And then we get to a certain point and we can add somebody else in, and that takes the load off of you. But in terms of compensation, the more you're able to assist a doctor in growing the production, my thought is that we get to share in that. Now, after doing this for a few years, I was talking to a friend whose salary's an assistant at 6 figures a year. And this assistant does incredible things and a lot of stuff. But when we're getting into these next steps, and I encourage people to think pie in the sky, like think outside of the box, that is someone that is willing to think outside of the box and give over $100,000 a year to their assistant because of what they do, because they see that value there. And so the idea that we're trying to give is that if dental assistants can make themselves invaluable to an office, they can help in so many different ways in such a clear, effective, efficient manner that compensation, it's just there, right? It's not a question. How we get there was always a question. That's where these tiers come from. What Tiger and I realized, and what I realized that in talking with Tiger that I didn't have on the tier system before, was that what I was also expecting was not just a skill set. I could work with somebody who could do amazing things clinically. If they're a jerk to everyone else on my team, if they're talking ill about people, if they're gossiping, if they're doing all these negative things, they're not a benefit to my team. And why would I give that person a raise? Right? If I have someone who's amazing clinically and they can't back me up with any patient, why would I have that person at my office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what it means is there's clinical skills that need to be grown, but there's communication and there's leadership. And then I would also say cross-training, right? If you want to be truly invaluable, be able to pick up a phone when it rings, be able to schedule someone. I would expect treatment plan presentation, taking payment. There's a bunch of other things that can make an office run much more efficiently. And those skills all need to be grown. And so a tiered system, what we mean by that is level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. You grow on your skills. So you're not expected to go from 1 to 5. And there's a clearly defined dollar amount with each one of those. And so it just gives owners, doctors, managers a very clear way to say, you've tested from level 2 to level 3. Everyone has signed off saying you have all the skills. It's now time to get a raise.
Fantastic. And before we go and show the actual tier, I also want to address one thing for office managers. So I've seen Beverly here and a couple others. A lot of times when we hear dental assistants, office managers say, when you're in charge of hiring dental assistants, it's like, we need a dental assistant. And you create an ad and it goes out there and you start looking for a dental assistant. And it's like, there's no clear way of understanding, like, who are we actually looking for? Like, this tiered system will actually help office managers to figure out, wait a minute, do we need sterile tech, or do we need this person, or do we need that person? And also for office managers, when you look at the tiered system that we're going to present to you, obviously we're open for feedback. Drop it in the chat, or we can stay after that to answer questions. I would also highly encourage, for a lot of offices, have the tier 1 always open. Always hire for tier 1, because it's the easiest way for you to get in, see if the person is right, and if it's going to be the right culture fit, because I've never seen an office having enough dental assistants. So that tier 1 should be always open, should be always hiring. So I don't know, Brian, if you have any thoughts on that before we actually present the tiers.
Yeah, just to that point, I do believe that this tier system, I believe that this thought process is not for everyone. It's going to be dependent on dental assistants who want to learn. So this isn't easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes your own energy and effort, to learn this stuff, but it also takes some mentorship, right? So it takes doctors or other assistants who are willing to train. And so I think just kind of what we were talking about at the beginning is that based on the data that we saw from that report, people want some more compensation, and people are thinking about leaving. I hate saying this out loud, but if you've got to find a place that's going to make you happy. And if something like this is intriguing to you and you're not at a place where you're ever going to get mentorship, and you know that deep down or not, what it means is you can learn all of the skills, but you're not going to get that compensation. It might mean you have to find a new place, right? Doctors and owners out there, if you don't want to lose people, it might mean that you need to take some of your own time and energy and effort and train people and put something back into your team, because it comes back around and then they're ready for the next one. You do it again, it comes back around. What you should see is that the production increase in a more efficient, well-trained team is more than enough to cover as it comes back around. And you just keep doing that. And for me, as we get into those higher tiers, part of that tier is that my assistants can now train the next ones. So all I have to do is sign off on it, right? So it's self-fulfilling. It just continues to keep going. I love teaching anything that has to do with dentistry, and there's a lot of dental assistants that are the same way. So as you mature, then you get to teach, which is such a cool thing. So I don't know. It's very cool. It just keeps going around and going around and going around.
Let's go. All right. Drum rolls. Here we are. So, Brian, walk us through this part. Like, what is this? How did we break it into clinical communication leadership? Why did we leave pay expectations blank? And what's in each level? So we're presenting 6 levels. It's a form. All of that is going to be available for you guys to download. We will also include the Excel so that you can manage your own things, copy, paste. But Brian, walk us through this part.
Yeah, just recognize that this is just a template, right? And it was interesting because as of a couple years ago, when we started throwing stuff on paper, I do a lot more clinical stuff than is on here now too. So for me, this would change a lot. For me, I probably have 9 tiers now, because I would want to leave room for someone to really, really make a lot of money if they wanted to, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. But we basically looked at it and it's like, well, where do people start, right? And we leave pay expectations at the bottom because you got to figure out what you're going to pay. You could be a doctor
depending on where you're located too. Like you're in the city, you're out in the
huge,
about,
right?
Like, yeah.
I was in New York City, and then we had offices in rural Texas. You start at a different compensation level, right? And you grow to a different compensation level. So geographically, of course, what your doctor does is going to govern some of this. If I'm a doctor who does fillings and crowns, and I don't do anything else, either we're going to be crazy busy to produce a lot, or we're not going to produce all that much. And that's fine, right? Everyone gets to determine what they want their practice to be like. I can tell you that there's some doctors out there that don't want to grow in certain clinical areas because they don't have the backup and the team that can support them. Myself as a dentist, I could go learn a bunch of stuff, but if I don't have a team that can help me do that thing, I'm not going to be able to bring it back to my office. This is a way that you can help your doctor bring this stuff back to the office, right? And again, we're talking about some level of happiness based on compensation. I think that exists for everyone. But that report is showing that people are leaving because they're not feeling valued in a monetary way as well. And so if you can learn these things and support your doctor to bring them back to your office, you will grow production. Again, it's a business. That production then can go back into the office and help with your increase in compensation. But if you look, let's just go level 1. This is sterile tech, right? That is where a lot of people start, or somewhere around there. And then, your entry level, right? We're kind of like some people will do assisted hygiene, right? So what do? They can do some basic charting. They take x-rays, maybe an iTero scan here and there, right? But besides that, they're not doing too much. If we go all the way to the other end, that assistant is so well versed in the office and so well versed in clinical dentistry that they should be able to teach a baby doctor to the office. If we had a doctor graduate last year and they came to the office, my assistant should be able to train them in how this office goes. Does that make sense? So there's a big difference there. But same with communication, same with leadership. And to get to that point, you've got to learn some communication, because you're working intimately with your doctor on a whole array of procedures, but other stuff. And leadership at that point, I mean, you're training assistants. You're leading patients from being a new patient You might be breaking down a treatment plan. You might be breaking down a payment plan. You're taking payments. You're scheduling them. You're doing the clinical work. You're leading in that manner. But you're a leader in the office, right? Everyone will say, you know, you lead by example. I couldn't agree more, right? You're not going to make it to that level if you're a jerk to everyone. If you're causing drama, you know. So you've got to get to that point. You're going to be leading by example. I want to say again, this is a template. Everyone's going to decide, what do I want for a dollar amount, right? And what I mean by that is your doctor or doctors who are there, you have to say, I would be willing to pay my assistant $62 an hour if they did all of this stuff. That's scary. You also got to trust, and there's a bunch of levels before this that should show you, but you got to be able to trust that if someone's making that much, you're doing a lot of stuff.
Couple things I want to add, Brian.
Yeah.
To me, lately, big words are kind of becoming a distraction. So I see people throw leadership, communication, and all these different sorts of labels at the dentistry, at the industry that we love, without giving too much details. And so I think part of what we're trying to do here, and by the way, this will involve too, like Brian and I will continue working on it. This is like version 1 we're presenting to everybody who's on a webinar, but that will continue to evolve. We have some ideas on what we want to do. But the goal here was also, what does it mean leadership in a level 1? That means you just learn to listen and write things down. That's your leadership skill at that level. That means when the doctor or the office manager is talking, you're just taking notes. You have a notebook and a pen next to you all the time. And that's great. That's all we want. From a leadership standpoint, that means it shows me that you're hungry, that you want to learn, right? Like, what does the communication mean? What do you call instruments internally? Each office has its own language, how they call things, like that Beaver thing or that Montana Jack, like whatever that name is, you're just going to write it down and create your own thing for that office, right? So that's where we also kind of like to break it down in pieces here, and we will continue doing that so that it's not just the big word and we throw at a dental assistant and say, you need to be a leader. Like, what does that mean? But it's going to show here in each tier, like, wait a minute, have you done this? Have you done that? Now you should be at the level 4, but you're lacking some of the skills in leadership, and especially the level 3. And that means help set up or maintaining quality standards for the practice in each RTA. What does that mean? You just pull up a Google Doc and you just start writing things down with the doctor and say, what would that look like for our practice? And now we have some framework that we can go and get that leadership skill done for the level 3. So I just wanted to add that as a talking point.
I think that's fantastic. I'm going to tie it back into what we were talking about at the very beginning, which is one of the reasons people are dissatisfied with offices is, drama, toxicity, that sort of stuff. What would a strong leader say if they heard people talking ill about somebody else in the office?
Bring them in. They'll stuck together.
Or they would say, hey, we don't gossip. Like we don't talk bad about other people in an office. And it nips it right in the bud. And if you're in an office where people know we don't gossip in this office, like that's not something that we do. Do you think there's going to be a whole lot of toxicity there? Maybe for a short amount of time, but those people are going to weed themselves out. And that's leadership too, right? I would say that's very strong leadership. That is the sort of stuff that I would expect out of someone, mid-level and, all the way up to the end there. But if you look, I think a lot of this stuff can aid. It has the ability to aid in a lot of the dissatisfaction. And it's not just dental assistants. Nobody likes a toxic workplace. Doctors can tell when things are getting dramatic. Hygienists can tell, office managers, because everyone can tell, right? And so as you're doing this sort of exercise with your dental assistants, again, the trickle-down effect, it's going to bleed out to the entire office, right? And the strongest leaders are not always the person you'd think they are.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Sometimes they're the very quiet one, but they're just steady Eddie, and it's going to give you a whole lot of skills. There was one bullet point as well that wasn't covered at the very beginning, and I think when you have strong leadership and communication skills, and I know this because I've had some pretty deep conversations with assistants at the New York office who you met that said a lot of the stuff that we were learning in the office, because we did communication courses, we did leadership courses, we read books, we did stuff as a team, that their relationships in their private life were getting better, right? Mm-hmm. A little more satisfaction in the workplace, usually results in some more satisfaction in the work-life balance, which means there's more satisfaction in your private life. These skill sets transfer over as well, right? I'm not going to promise that anyone's going to go find the partner of their dreams and have a beautiful house and 2 kids and everything else they wanted because they decided to learn some new skills in dentistry. But there's got to be a lot of emphasis on communication and leadership in an office at every level.
Okay, I want to open up for some questions. So if you guys have questions, please go on chat, drop some thoughts. What do you think? Yay or nay? What challenges do you see with this? We're open to get this discussion going. The way I would see this work in an office, if somebody would embrace this kind of thing, I mean, I could literally see someone print this out like in a big format and start doing arrows left and right between different columns to reorganize these kind of things and say, no, that's going to be like, I don't know, I'll just, but Invisalign should be level 3, solid DA, or, like doing assisted hygiene should be, no, it's only assigned for specialty DA. Like you can move things around for your practice and then finalize it, laminate it, have it done, have it completed. So that would be my thought, how people take it. I'm still waiting for questions. Yeah.
One more thing here. The question that I've gotten in discussions with this is, how do they transfer up to the next tier? The way that I did it in my office was that it was essentially you tested into it, right? So let me use an example, an iTero scan or an impression. That needs to be spot on to move from a very basic to the next tier, right? So for 1 month, if you brought me an impression or showed me a scan, it had to be good, right? And we would go through training on what a good one and a bad one looks like, but you had to do it for the whole month, right? Because anyone can take one good iTero scan. That doesn't mean that you've mastered it. We're looking for mastery, right? And so if it was day 22 of the month and you showed me an iTero scan and there's blue blobs all over the place, that's not a good iTero scan. That doesn't mean you can't go to the next tier, but we started over. You had to do it for a month because consistency is what is important in all of this stuff, right? We don't want to get to level 5 and forget all the stuff that we've learned in level 3. It all has to build on each other, but there has to be consistency to do that. Now, maybe I'm a hard ass and a month is too long for your office. That's part of the discussion, and that's why this is a template and you got to figure it out yourself. But there's got to be some consistency. And if I'm an assistant and I'm like, I want to learn some new things so I can get a raise, I want to know exactly what is expected of me to get to the next level. So all of these little things, you got to work them out before you go live with something like this, because that's going to be a question, right? It's not just, I'm going to take one good iTero scan and they're like, fantastic, you're on to the next one.
Right. And this template that we're going to provide you guys at the end, you can download, and it will have one big sheet that you're looking at right now, and then each individual level with comments and sign-offs pages are going to be available. So, Brian, let's look at some of the stuff, measured outcomes of the system. So, we've talked a little bit about what the outcomes are, but, there was the one bullet point that really struck with me is the first one. So can you address that? And then I'll go through and I'll read some of the questions that came in.
I'm sorry, I was reading the question and I kind of
okay, so we're all reading the question. So
Lauren,
let's address the question then from Lauren.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think it's an important question, and this is where I think I'm saying you got to find the right office for yourself as well, right? Because the right team. Every office is going to need, depending on the amount of patients they see and the amount of chairs they have, a certain mix of these tiers, right? And so you can have, say you had 10 ops, and so you're going to need 8 assistants. You're going to need a couple, 1s or 2s. You're going to need a couple 3s or 4s, and you're going to need a couple, 5s or 6s, right? So if that's where you want to stop, I would say that's your prerogative. The office is going to have to find people who are going to continue to grow. But again, in terms of communication, I would have questions. Well, why do we want to stop at a certain level? Also, because I'm going to bet at some point down the line, you're going to want to raise. And then what do we do? Right? Then it becomes the same conversation. Well, I've been here for 2 years. And it's like, well, you've also stopped growing with us. So I think it depends, right? It depends on the office there, but I think you're going to need certain tiers for certain things, and they're gonna kind of same there. Depending on the tiers that you have too. Say we had 1 to 10. Let's just do 1 to 10. I think that naturally a lot of people are going to get into that 5 or 6 range, like middle upper, right? And I think it's a select few that matriculate up the ladder and go all the way and continue going, right? So in this, there's 6, it's a 3. I think that's pretty consistent, right? I think there's going to be some people that stay there.
Yeah. Before you go and read Megan's question, let me address Lauren's question from more a little bit like, I'm not in a clinical, but more from like a business side of things. I've talked to an office where they actually brought it up. It was really cool because you can look at it, Lauren, from like a resource planning standpoint and say, with the doctor and say, at any given moment, how many assistants do we want to we would like to have in each bucket, right? So that's okay if somebody's in the level 3 and we need level 3 assistants like solid DAs. Not everybody's going to be a specialty DA and go with a doctor to take a clinical course on implants or TMJ or any new thing that the office is going to do. Not everybody's going to do the level 6, right? So like it creates a bucket. Maybe you add another line item there that says, what's the ideal count for each bucket that we would like to have? And maybe that helps the conversation as well. But like what you said about if the competencies for each tier as well to tier up and like I said, to retest, I would agree with Brian, I would retest people. So like, because these tiers will change as the office continues to grow, like there's still going to be a bread and butter dentistry. But if the office is growing, you're going to do on more different procedures, add more doctors, maybe assisted hygiene and things like that. And so these tiers are going to change. And so people are naturally just going to change their roles and you're going to have to retest. That would be my take on this. Brian, do you have anything to add or do we go to Megan's question?
Yeah. And everything is evolving, right? So you might have 6 tiers in an office and 5 years later, there might be 9, and they're going to have different skill sets in there. So everything is always evolving. But you would retest. Yeah. Okay.
Let's go to Megan's question.
How do you comply with the clinical schedule to ensure the assistants that have not leveled to a specific procedure don't find themselves in that procedure? So I take the administrative scheduling template to a new level of complication. Yeah,
Brian,
I can see where you're coming
from. Can you stop playing with AirPod case? It drives me nuts.
I need a fidget thing. I'm ADD, guys. I'm sorry. It's a really good question. I can't imagine that something like that is going to happen that often, right? So, but it could be tricky, right? I think what you'll end up seeing is the opposite. You'll start to see that as your doctors are leveling up and adding new procedures, there is an assistant who is doing that with them, right? And so Jennifer is her name, by the way, Tiger. So Jennifer and I would travel and go to courses together because she was the one that was constantly leveling up with me, right? And everyone else was still growing, whether you know it or not. You're still growing if you're doing procedures with your doctor. But if you just like say you go back to the beginning of an office, right? You're not going to hire your first assistant to be a level 1. You need somebody that's going to be middle and upper tier. And as you start to figure out your practices, clinical tool belt, and all the things that you're going to do, you're going to start to fill those in. Where I would see that being a problem is if you lost somebody who's a high tier and you needed to bring somebody else in. I'm going to pause. Does that help answer your question or?
Yeah, Megan, tell us yes or no, like if we're on the right track. And Lauren too, if we answered the question. So that would help us, a little bit of feedback. And then I'm going to keep pushing Brian to stay on time because we want to make sure. So Brian, let's talk about where to start for doctors, office managers, and for assistants.
Yeah, if I'm a doctor or owner manager, awesome. I'm going to start by playing with this idea, right? And like where do we start somebody off? Where's a tier 1, level 1 brand newbie get paid to where pie in the sky? If I had an assistant that could do X, Y, and Z, implants, all-on-4, ortho, band and bracket, all of this stuff, and my doctor did that. What would I be willing to pay that person? And what are some other things that they can do? We used to present treatment plans. We used to swipe cards. We used to do treatment plans, all of that stuff. And we had assistants doing that. That is really leveling up. That's taking some of the energy, some of the workload off of the front so that they can focus on other things. I do believe that comes with, or should come with, higher compensation. So you got to think, where are we willing to go? What is our range? And then start to look at the template and start to look at filling those things in. After that, you're talking to your assistants. Where do you think you are given this structure? Where do you want to get to? And assistants, let's go back to the communication component here. You got to be honest with this stuff, because if I'm a doctor and I'm learning, I'm going to be honest with you. I know you think you're really good at doing multi-unit temporaries. You're not. Some of that has to come back on the doctor, and the doctor's got to train you, right? Or you got to go find training somewhere else. And I think when Tiger and I are looking at this, part of what we're setting up right now as well is a training platform, because I know that a lot of dental assistants out there want to learn, and they have a doctor who doesn't care. They can't be bothered to train or coach or mentor or do anything like that. And so there's things coming that will suffice for that. But at some point, you got to find a doctor or a really, really, really solid lead RDA who can teach you and mentor you and do all of that. That's where I start.
Okay, I will say one thing that hits home for me a lot is for doctors listening, that if you don't have that within you to genuinely ask that question, just ask your office manager to do it, because I feel like office managers, you guys are tremendous when it comes to soft skills and understanding how the office runs. Like just being able to ask a question, a dental assistant, right? So you can pull up the report and put it in front of a dental assistant, do a one-on-one and say, is that you? Right? And then don't say anything else, right? Or just ask a simple question. How are you? And then just don't say anything else. Let the assistant talk. Since this is the Dental Assistant Recognition Week, let's recognize them. Let's take this as an opportunity to sit down with your RDAs and just ask one question, not try to prove anything, not to try to talk back, not to try and say, but I told you so last week. Like, just listen. And I think it's going to help a lot of offices to get that information off of somebody's mind, to put it on a paper and say, okay, I have something for you. Like, we can build this and we can get you up and running to a different place. Like, whatever, if you implement the tiers or not. But I would highly recommend just to do one-on-one. Again, if you're a doctor, owner, or office manager that wants to take a lead on that, and just ask that simple question, how are you? If you can't start that, just present a report and say, are you that dental assistant? Like, let's be honest, like, are you in that bucket, so that you have that conversation going. So that would be something that I would recommend. And then Megan, let's go back. I would say this issue applies more predominantly in our large scale office where each assistant runs their own column.
Megan,
yeah.
I'm going to be a little cold here. Either it sounds like you have an assistant who has a column who's not capable of doing certain procedures. They need training. They need training, or you need a new assistant.
Oh.
But you know, a lot of every practice has a different mix of clinical procedures. You know, it's like an 80-20, right? 20% are specialized and you have an assistant who can handle those. Your other 80% need to be handled by everyone else. And if they can't handle it, they can't handle it, right? But you can't just ask somebody because if they haven't been trained. If they've been trained and trained and trained and trained, and it doesn't work.
Using the tier system, put them back in sterilization tech and say, now, since you can't handle, like, this is where you at. Like, that's the tiered system that can help. All right, so let's start wrapping up. By the way, Raffle, guys, please make sure to fill it out because we are almost done. Please go ahead and download the checklist. So I'm going to check myself that the link is working. And then in the meantime, Michael, let's open up the raffle and let's go.
And for Megan and for everyone else, those tiers, each one of those tiers breaks out into its own page. And it's got little check boxes and everything. And what I've used it for in the past is that you use that as your training. So you go through, check. There's an area for comments so that as you're training, you can leave comments. And then there's an area on the side that says past competency, right? And everyone signs off on it, your lead or your manager, whoever, and your doctor. And that form is theirs, or you can post it somewhere so that they know. But you can use that form to talk to your assistant there, right? And like, hey, here's what we need out of your column. Where do you think you are? And you have all these different tiers, and they think they're a 5 and they're a 2. I mean, it's facts are facts, right? And then you can start walking them up the ladder.
That's why I love this thing. It's so clear. Like, that's why I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's just, the conversation is so clear. It's black and white. There's no feelings. There's no, I think, or I told you, or I don't know. Megan, I hope it helps. Like, give it a try. And then on our end, share download code. Yes, my bad. Let me do that. Slide, share start. So we're missing the big form. For some reason, we removed it. Michael, let's redo the downloadable checklist. So first thing on that checklist should be the big form that we shared on the PowerPoint, and then the individual levels. So guys, we will send an email to everybody who attended with the link to download the proper checklist, where it has the full thing with 6 tiers, and then each individual tier broken down. So, and my assumption, everybody's here as a customer, so you guys don't need to worry about the QR code number 1. And then, or you can take a picture of this QR code, just save it, and then we will update it by the end of the day, and you'll be able to get access to these things, to the checklist. All right, let's do the raffle. And then while we're doing the raffle, Brian, any departing thoughts on this? Any conclusions or anything like that?
No, it's a different way of looking at things, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, and so it is unfortunately going to weed people out who don't want to put in, that hard work. But
Okay.
You start getting up into those tiers, and it's fun, man. It makes dentistry real fun.
All right, and now we got to our fun raffle where we're going to pick 3 people who is going to win $100 each. So 3 gift cards that we're going to give away. Let's go. Michael, person number 1. And that is Martha. Congratulations. We're going to reach out to you and send a gift card to your office. Let's go. Thank you, Martha. Karina, let's go. We're going to send you a gift card. I might even personally deliver it to you, just like last time I showed up at the office. All right, Megan. Fantastic. And now we got our 3 winners. So guys, expect an email from us, and we will reach out. And I mean, we have the addresses. We're just going to send a mail to the office with a gift card with your name on it. So make sure to tell your office managers not to throw it away if they see a mail from Zen coming to you with your name on it. So thanks everybody for attending. I hope it was helpful. Brian, thank you so much. It is not an easy topic to talk about this stuff, but I think we managed it pretty well. I hope nobody got mad at us. We're just trying to open up the conversation so that people take this thing seriously. So that's all we're trying to do. Thanks, Brian, again. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for everybody for attending.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time.